So in your glossary of terms, first I'm going to sing this song because I think this will help answer some of the questions you may have. And it's kind of writing song parodies is just a tradition as well. And so my doo-wop guy is going to help me a little bit. So you may pick up some of the answers in some of our dad just used a lot of weird words to describe things and anyway, and also he just had a lot of certain sayings. And let me say that when Hayne and John and I were teenagers, young people, you could be under 18 and drive a school bus in North Carolina.
Yes. And there are a lot of stories on that.
And my brothers were school bus drivers, so that explains the first verse.
So was Mike and so was Joe.
Every morning you rule us. Hayne and John, go earn your pay. Can't vote yet, but go drive your school bus. We are so glad that you are our dad. Talented and clever.
An important mentor, both personally as well as academically and professionally. My father immigrated here from Korea in the mid-1950s and saw Hayne as a real kind of father figure in becoming an American. So I just wanted to say those things and before I read his letter, and I know that he's very sorry he couldn't be here. Dear Barbara and Hayne, it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be participating in your 90th birthday celebration, although from Southern California, where he now lives. In Korea, 61st birthday, and I'm reading this in his language, is traditionally considered a crowning jewel of one's longevity. For this occasion, relatives and friends are invited and celebrated publicly with food and bowing. Why 61st birthday? Because people rarely lived past that age in the olden days. Hey, you have accomplished half again as many years. Congratulations. You became my benefactor, friend, and mentor when I was an NC State graduate student, still struggling to make it. You took me in under your wings as I grew as a budding research engineer. I learned to imitate your writing and came to appreciate your upbeat and generous approach to life. Your young children became my friends, and they gave me so much pleasure and comfort whenever I visited your home in the time when I was feeling isolated and lonely. That was over 50 years ago. You and Barbara, you gave me and my late wife Sandra immeasurable encouragement and support before we married. I'm deeply grateful for that. I'm proud to be called your former student and your friend. Congratulations again, Hayne and Barbara. I regret that I cannot attend the celebration in person, but I know that it will be a wonderful toast of a life well lived. It is my wish that you will continue to enjoy good health and God's blessings in all aspects of life you cherish and care about. With fond memories and admiration, Dong Che.
You got
before I started classes at State, and he hired me. And, well, best man at my wedding, son's name is Tristan Hayne, you get the idea. Well, during the afternoon seminars that happen once a week or once a month at State, Hayne had the ability to sit there, nod off.
Even then.
Even then, and kind of enjoy the moment, as it were, through the entire hour of the seminar. Until the seminar speaker was finished. And when the seminar speaker was finished, then he would always kind of nod to awaken us and raise his hand and ask the most important question that everybody wanted to know. And everybody would just kind of stare and go, how did he do that? But it was common. It happened every time there was a seminar. So there's nothing, it wasn't a once in a while kind of a thing. It was just, so somehow, here's someone who can sleep. Maybe sleep is the wrong word. Who can relax, still continue to listen and focus, and then ask a question. That's pretty amazing. I'll come back up later, but you needed something a little lighter. So.
Us cousins, friends, and all your grants, thankful for your wisdom boundless. Grandkids and great-grands, now hear you say the same sweet words that we did.
I think that Leslie Detweiler, who's over here, and I are the representatives of Haynes Simmons family cousins. According to my calculations, there were 18 of us. That could be off one or two. We descended from James Henry Simmons and his wife Lily White Simmons, who we always knew as Nanny, our grandparents. Well, in the 1930s and early 40s, most of us descended on the ancestral home in Gainesville to spend the summer. It was a nice cool climate, lots of room to run around, and delicious food from our grandmother Nanny. Now you can imagine that with that many cousins in one house, there were lots of fights, squabbles, arguments, fist fights occasionally. And what I remember from those days most was that Hayne was always the cool one. He kept his calm. He sort of was above all of the petty squabbles. He broke up the fights. He sympathized with whoever was being picked on in that particular day. So I've always admired Hayne since that time for the calmness, the way he deals with whatever he has to face in life. So after more than 75 years later, I am very happy to be here and on behalf of all the Simmons family to wish Hayne a very happy 90th birthday and many happy years to come.
How wonderful it is to see people around this room that I have so many happy childhood memories of seeing the lives, spending time with John and Bunky and Jenny and Laura. I'm so thrilled that my first cousins are here tonight, my dad's beloved niece and nephew. This is Gurtesh Khalsa, who came here all the way from Singapore, and his sister Jan, who picked pick him up in Atlanta, where she lives, and they came up today together. And it's just, I just feel like I'm reliving such wonderful times that we all used to have together as children, and with Dong Che, who used to be our, our big brother in our house, and just so many happy memories. I see my husband wandering here, so there he is.
I'm not a public speaker, but I do want to just say, as someone who was brought into this family legally, I guess.
As opposed to the illegal ones?
As opposed to illegally. But,
And you know who you are.
but what I have gained in being a part of this family that Hayne is an appreciation of what family is, and I just want to say thank you, Hayne. I appreciate it, and it's something that I will carry with me.
Therefore they do not feel cheated. All of us glad that you're their granddad and great-granddad, to you and Mom, Dad.
I'm not a public speaker at all, but I just want to say happy birthday. My father built wooden boats, and was cutting my teeth in a kayak, 17-foot kayak, ocean kayak. Kind of thought I was the stuff. On a beach on Sea Island, Georgia, I thought it was a dare that it would never be taken up on. And Dr. Palmer took the challenge, handed over his camera, and paddled out. It wasn't that long ago. And I still have pictures of that. I wish I could have brought them here today, but I don't have access to them. But I know you remember that day.
Oh, I do.
And he took me up on a challenge I didn't think he would do, and bob and weave, but he's a true kayaker. I don't know if anybody knew that. He paddled offshore through the swells off Sea Island, Georgia, and always been family to me, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
June, tell them
My
who John
cousin.
is.
What?
Tell them what relation John.
Oh,
This is
John.
my godfather.
John, my dad is,
The godfather.
this is John Hardee. His dad and my dad were very good friends at Georgia Tech, and he is godfather to John, and we spent many summers at their house in St. Simons, and wonderful memories.
Well, you got to add to
John's
that.
parents introduced my parents.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. That's correct. So, his parents were responsible for the pairing of Hayne and Barbara.
And
So by the way, cake is here, so please come serve yourself while we talk.
And one other thing, apparently my father learned how to rig the dorm room so that when the RA opened it up, the lights would go out. And nobody was studying. And when he closed it, they went back on.
Who collected our past we forged with Hayneisms helping us live right. There was that George guy anyway. We never understood that. We are so glad that you are our dad.
One of my favorite stories about Hayne was, and this may not be a good story to tell, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I told John earlier. We used to have a seminar, and everyone had to attend. Hayne would go to the seminar, sleep through it. The second that the seminar speaker finished, he would ask him the pertinent question from the whole seminar. And I never figured out how he could do it. I stayed around for a lot of years trying to figure that out, but it never came to me. There's a couple of other connections. We were talking, Dong Che's daughter. I bought the car from Dong Che. It was my first car that I ever had when they were leaving. And then the other side of this is he taught me to be a world traveler. He took me to Yugoslavia for a conference when I was just about to graduate. And I wound up with a job in Europe for a year and a half. And I greatly appreciate this. I don't know whether I went to you before Barbara. Did I go with you before Barbara?
I had
did?
not been to Yugoslavia at that time. That was my first trip.
Yeah, okay. I got the first trip. But he's an exceptional man, and I love him.
And we love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And now we have my father's other child, Mike Wiggins, is going to.
Entered the family legally, I snuck under the fence.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah, I've known Hayne. I've actually been the fourth child for just under 50 years, and I consider myself very fortunate. I could tell stories for days and days. I'm sure everybody in this room knows how adventurous it was to be a Palmer child. I really would like to tell some of them. I guess I have to tell one of my favorite stories. We're sitting at the, I was ubiquitous at the Salter Path family campground 2 weeks every August. And we're sitting at the picnic bench. It's about a 10-foot picnic bench. And John, who was always the devil, kept reaching over and stealing food from Hayne's plate. Or were you stealing food from John's plate?
I think it's vice versa.
And Mr. Palmer, he was so cool and collected, always. I think I saw him really lose his temper twice. Maybe I'll tell that other story. And and one of them reached over and grabbed something, and Mr. Palmer took a whole glass of milk and threw it right in his face. And we're sitting there, and as funny as it was, even to John, the milk just trickling right off his face. Nobody, we couldn't laugh because we just knew it. We just kept on eating.
Mike, I think that was me that got the.
It was you. Yeah.
It was me
You
that got
right.
the milk in the face.
Another story, we were sitting inside. Well, first we were out raking leaves, because if you've ever been to their house, the smallest tree in their yard is about that big around. So the poplar leaves, we raked them every fall, and I would always come help because we would pile the leaves big high in the driveway in the street so the sucker could come suck them up, and then we would drive our cars through them. But we didn't tell him that. But so we're all out there raking one day. Mr. Palmer's raking, and I'm helping. And we're in there, all of a sudden the phone rings, and Hayne gets a phone call and goes inside. And then the phone rings again, or John, and I go inside, have to go to the bathroom. So we're all in there laying there watching TV. Mr. Palmer comes in. He goes over to the tool bench, grabs the clippers, and cuts the cable to the TV. And sparks go flying everywhere, and I was in TV again. And not hardly another word was spoken. We all just ran back out and started raking leaves.
Mike, you weren't there. You weren't there for that. I told you that story.
I was there for that.
No, you
Anyway,
weren't.
I just want to say thank you very much for allowing me to be a member of your family. And I love you very much. You guys are the best.
Anyway, Mike stole my thunder. That was my story.
You've got more.
And I hate to tell you, you weren't there. I told you the story. Let me tell you how it really happened. So, I think I was like 12, 13. John was like 9 or 10. John, you may have to help me tell this story.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So, it was a Saturday, and back in those days, of course, Saturday morning TV was dedicated to kids. And we, of course, did the typical thing, eating sugar cereals, watching cartoons, and this was in the workshop of our house there on Mayview. And John and I felt there was something about that morning. We were more slovenly than normal. And we were watching these cartoons, but Dad had other plans. And that was the raking of the leaves. And he kept passing by the door, back and forth. And John and I are flopped on the couch, and Dad is like, "Boys, turn that idiot box off. We're going to go out, get ready to turn that idiot box off. We're going to be raking leaves today. I want you out there raking leaves." And we were like, "Dad." And we kept watching.
No.
And then we wouldn't hear it. What?
So then we did go out and rake leaves. We actually did.
And then
let
snuck
me
back?
think about it. So we did go out and rake leaves for about 20, 30 minutes, and then we didn't see Dad for a while, so we went back in.
I stand corrected.
I remember it.
I didn't think we peeled ourselves off the couch the whole time, but anyway, I guess we got back in and snuck it back on, and Dad's, he's in the living room and he's passing back and forth and he's yelling, he's barking again. Turn that idiot box off and get out there and rake. And we were, Dad! And that was the answer, Dad! And now it's like noon and it's going, the cartoons are over. It's now Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It's going into ABC Wild World of Sports, and John and I are gunning for a full day. Flopped on the couch, dawn to dark. We are going for it. And I remember, the thing I remember is that how flopped on the couch we were. I think I was literally almost upside down watching TV. And all of a sudden, Dad just comes in. And he comes in without saying a word, and he reaches for these pliers on the wall of all these tools, and he just grabs his wire and grabs the cord to our black and white Zenith TV, and poof! This loud pop, and my first thought was, look at all the pretty sparks. Just like this incredible explosion of sparks and gold sparks falling down, but shock, just what in the world is Dad doing? And then he just walks out. He just cut it. The TV went black, and he just walked out. And my second thought was, why is he not unconscious on the floor?
I think he actually gave us a look like, and then walked out.
My second thought, it's Saturday, and it's going to be Saturday night, and there's no TV. What are we going to do? But John and I had nothing. The TV was dead, and we had nothing else to do but grab the rakes, and we just silently stared at each other as we raked the leaves on the backyard, like, Dad's crazy. But to finish the story, Dad did tape it up with electrical tape, but we did watch that.
No.
No?
That is wrong.
No.
That is wrong.
It was broken for 2 weeks.
No!
We didn't have TV for a long time.
All right. Everything he said is correct. So my father, the scientist, the master of all things electronic, whatever, I am not sure how much he was thinking about whether the grips on those pliers were insulated or not. So thankfully they were. I do not know how rational a thought it was. Only he can tell you that. But it was very surprising that he was not.
True.
He was surprising. Okay, great. He's got information. But no, we went out, we raked the leaves, and we didn't say a damn word. And that TV sat there unpowered for about 2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Yes.
With a
That was
little
entirely
stud of cord this
his
long
decision
coming
as
out.
to when that thing got wired back up.
You did a hell of a job on that pair of dikes.
It did.
What's the information you have?
All right. I spent many an afternoon in Hayne's office. Hayne was my mentor, father that I never had kind of person, and all this kind of stuff. And he was dispensing wisdom about dealing with children, and he was telling me this story about once upon a time his kids would not get out in front of the TV to go outside. And so he decided that he was going to give them a wake-up call. And so he decided that since they weren't going to get up off the couch, that he was going to render the TV unusable. So he was going to give them a little shock and awe. So he picked up the pliers knowing exactly what was going to happen in the sharps and the sparks and all that kind of stuff. And so he picked them up and cut the cord in two because they wouldn't stop watching cartoons and get outside and work. And so it worked. They went outside and, so that was his advice to me. That's how you deal with children.
But did he say, I purposely grabbed the pliers with
Yes.
plastic handles?
There, it's been answered.
No, he planned ahead. This was something that he was going to do to get your attention specifically.
He got it.
So
Great child abuse.
no, there was no child abuse involved. But anyway, that was one of the stories that I was going to tell because it's kind of one that kind of lingered as.
Well, obviously it's the best one because we heard the third one.
Okay, and there's another story. Well, that has to do with incipient cracks. This is one that most of you may not know, but once upon a time, Hayne worked. Where was it? Before you came to state, the ceramics company.
American Law.
Worked for American Lava, and there was this particular part that they were making that he later found out was going into this military device that was really important. And so the guy from the National Lab who's working on this would come in and inspect what they had made. And so he'd look at it, he'd twirl it around in his fingers, and he'd say, "This one has incipient cracks," and turn it down. And that always bothered him. And I heard the story about incipient cracks at least 10 or 20 times because it was kind of along the lines of what university administration logic went. And so it kind of came back around every time the university administration logic kind of failed to be logical. So anyway. So from the time that I was 17 until, well, I don't remember when, but Hayne was my mentor. And it was after kind of y'all you'd already flown the coop and June had left and John was still in town, but I was over at the house a lot too. And Hayne and Barbara were, and still are, kind of parents to me. And Hayne has done it over and over from graduate students to other students. And I will always regard that as being one of the most special times in my life. Because I learned more from him than I've learned from anyone else on the planet ever. And that's probably true with a number of people. So.
The guy that was rejecting parts with his own thing didn't just call them incipient cracks, he called them potential incipient cracks.
And that still bugs him till today.
What you said then stays with us now. Lessons still valued at our age. And we're pretty old. You can be who you want to be.
I was the Theodore Cleaver to Mike Wiggins' Eddie Haskell. That's for all you people older than me. I don't have any scary stories or incredibly humorous, although all these stories are ringing a bell because I remember watching TV several times with a famous Palmour head bob of. So I can imagine that at a seminar as well. But I have to say that I spent probably more time in my childhood at the Palmour's house than I did at my own. John and I met in first grade and we were friends all the way through college together. So I was not an engineer. I'm a marine biologist, so forgive me. But it was, going to the Palmour's house was my cultural exposure. My family it has a long history in East North Carolina, but not is somewhat ignominious. And I went to their house and their parents had paintings on the wall that they had painted. And if you scratched down, there weren't numbers underneath. This was pretty highfalutin. I had my first real glass of wine at their house. My mom specialized in Riunite d'Oro because it sounded exotic. We had actual red wine at their house. And I had my first job from the Palmour house, working for Cat Master Products, working the disc sander. And I don't believe you ever paid me. Now that I think of it. But yeah, I remember being forced to sand a very expensive piece of marine plywood that Boondog had peed on. And it smelled awful. Dried dog urine sanded. And I'm sorry to bring this down, but this is where I am. You just don't want to go there. It's bad. So, but no, it was a great experience and always welcoming, and it was tradition, Thanksgiving. I would eat Thanksgiving at my house and escape as quickly as possible to go over and be Lil's Trivial Pursuit partner at the Palmour's house. And she'd always say, "Joe, it's you and me against Sonny Boy. We're gonna take it." So I enjoyed every minute of my life over there. It was great until I moved away, and I still see them every time I'm in town. So thank you very much for being my surrogate parents all these years.
Hayne and John were like 6 and 8. They were really good friends with my son Russell, and that's how we met Hayne and Barbara, which was one of the very nicest encounters I think we ever had. But I won't beat around the bush too much. I heard all these stories, especially the one about cutting the cable, and the other stories about mean Hayne. And I have to tell you that when everything is relative, and I think Hayne and John would back me up when I say that, relatively speaking, Hayne was a really kind paterfamilias compared to our house. And indeed, when Hayne and John were asking me, begging me to tell the worst story. Oh, come on, John.
I'm just gonna say it, I'm backing her up.
Tell the very worst story I could think of to roast Hayne. I told them, but he was the nice daddy.
There are many, but there are two that I'll tell you tonight. When I was in college at Oglethorpe, I had this professor who at that time was 74 years old. He used to play string bass for Toscanini. He was a roommate of Igor Stravinsky. They lived together in Paris. And he talked about the days when he used to go through the Louvre and the Prado with his magnifying glass, studying the paintings there. And I always thought, that's just astounding. That's just amazing. Go forward more years than I want to count. And I happened to be in Paris one day with some people. And I'm talking to them, and they keep looking over my shoulder, and finally, one of them says, I think those people know you. And I turned around, and there were Unc and Babu. And the next day, we met up and went through the Louvre and the Picasso Museum and the L'Orangerie, where there were the Monet water lilies. And it was such an incredible experience to have that with you. Comparable to what I can imagine my professor must have had in his day. Another time, when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 or something, he condescended to play chess with me. let me say he gave me a clinic on playing chess. So, but we're there playing and, you know, making our moves. And I think it was John kept saying, "Dad, Dad, 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 Dad." And finally, Babu says, "John, they're playing a game. And it's a very funny game because it affects their mouths. They can't speak." But I'll always remember whenever we had our family times together, how you always took time to sit and talk with me like a peer, whatever my age was. And that meant so much to me. Obviously, you know.
If I could introduce y'all and just have you stand up. There's John's children, Chris and Rachel and Ethan, and here Carrie. And my three children, 1/3 of which is here. There's Ross and his girlfriend Carissa, and who have, one of the joys of my life is to see how close they've become with my mom and dad through having lived in this community long after I had to leave it. And then my daughter Claire is in Nevada with her husband Andrew, and the two great-grandchildren, Anya and Adeline, and who wish they could be here, but they couldn't, but are here in spirit. And then my son Daniel, who lives in Thailand, just couldn't make it. Although, I mean, great made it. No excuses, Daniel. But anyway, so it's one of the joys of, I think, of our lives is seeing that same mom and dad just always reaching out to folks and helping, listening to them and making them feel important.
Say a few things, and I need to do it now because some people need to leave. So just bear with me a minute and let me tell you a thing or two that might be worthwhile thinking about. All right. How do you get to be 90 years old? Well, it's pretty obvious. You just do it one day at a time, all 32,850 of them. And you need to recognize that you can't make that long space-time journey alone. Others are needed to guide, to inform, and to enlighten and enrich your learning experiences all along the way. Each of you here this evening, family members, cousins, former students, and longtime friends, as well as many others who are not here, have long been treasured members of my own particular team of fellow time travelers. Don't be afraid of getting old. When I was 6 years old, I had 11 living ancestors. 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 3 great-grandmothers, 1 great-grandfather, and 1 great-great-grandmother. Now that I'm 90, I have 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 2 great-granddaughters. So at 90, I'm now able to view life and family matters from about the midpoint of some 8 continuous generations whom I have personally known and cared about. That does give one a good bit of perspective in such matters, and maybe even conveys a little bit of gravitas in these matters. Enjoy life. With all of its attendant health issues and physical limitations, the aging process does also bring one the time to become more contemplative, to be able to reflect more thoughtfully on life itself, and to enjoy and more richly appreciate all the rewarding aspects of being involved in multi-generational
Shaping new young hearts with love, young minds with great love of learning. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And also, just real quick, happy birthday tomorrow to Forrest Getson and Mike Liggett.
So glad that you are